Hello, everybody. Welcome back into the LFC Transfer Room. I'm Jack, delighted to be joined by Kev and Charlie for a Transfer Central stream here on this Monday evening. Kev, first of all, for you, how are you doing on this lovely afternoon? For me, evening for you.
Happy days, mate. No, all good. Weather's good. Looks like a couple of signings could be done over the next couple of days. No, all good, mate. How are you?
I'm great. I'm doing incredibly well, Ken Pachi. Good to see you in the comments. Charlie, yourself?
Yeah, really good, really good. Weather's great. Finally, we'll have it for a good week or so or something. But let's use the weather, try to get some signings, and then that'll be great. Great summer. There you go, sorted.
It is fully in the swing of things. The news, the updates, what's happening, not happening. On the thumbnail for today's video, we've got three main players that have been the most linked, the most reported players. The one on the far right, we'll kick it off with him. We'll talk about him all throughout the stream here today because he's probably going to be the first bit of business done. It's Alexis Mac Allister. And the recent news is less so that he's signing. That's been that's old news now almost. And it's at a great price point. Kev, I'll toss it to you first. We're hearing rumors that his not so release clause, but kind of if we get money around here, we'll let you go, is around £45 million. Kev, for you, how good a deal would that be to get him in for that kind of price?
Well, compared to what was getting offered in January, which was around about the 70 million mark, I think it's an absolute snip of a deal. It's daylight robbery. It's back to the Michael Edwards kind of deals and, you know, getting players in for a price that everyone's gone, how's that happened? I think it's perfect. I think it's a fantastic deal. As I said in our chat, to get a World Cup player who has allegedly turned down the likes of Arsenal and Man United, who met the release clause and has come to us to play Europa League football, says a lot about us as a club. And it shows that without Champions League football, we can still bring in quality players, and a quality player in Alexis Mac Allister. You know, his dad done good for us in 2001 in that treble winning season, Gary Mac. So hopefully he can follow us in his dad's footsteps. For me, perfect signing for me.
Charlie, for you, price point. I mean, it's hard. You know, a guy who's won a World Cup, a lot of matches in the Premier League, a great season, led them to Europe. You'd think that this would not double the price, you know, not quite that high, but it's a great deal, wouldn't it be, at 45?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we look at the comparison between Mac Allister and Enzo Fernandez that went to Chelsea for three figures, you know, the savings that we've made on that player is you know, it says it itself. You know, you're talking 60 million plus for the player. The contract is probably going to be pretty good for the player itself that we're going to be signing compared to Enzo. And they play a similar kind of formation in terms of the spaces that they fill for the national team and their club. So I think it's an absolute steal. Hopefully we've kind of laid a good foundation with Brighton and the club itself with the negotiation, because that's kind of the thing that we've had. Our fingers have been burnt previously, haven't they, with Southampton and going back for their players. So if we do have that good, cordial relationship with Brighton, there's going to be hopefully future deals, you know, going their way as well. You know, who knows, if we have good youngsters, they could go that way. But in terms of the price point, and come back to your original question there, Jack, yeah, absolute snip of a player considering the abilities that he has, and comparing that to other players around Europe, in England. Fantastic.
Indeed. Great to see a lot of the folks, the regulars in here, Jen, Paul, Halior, a lot of you guys. Really appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Is it 45 million plus add-ons? I'm not sure. My understanding is that even if it is 45 million in add-ons, I'm still happy with that deal, to be quite honest with you. If the add-ons are, you know, 5 million for a Ballon d'Or, you're not complaining at that point. Now, would they accept that add-on? Probably not.
Yeah, I think it's 45 million for the release clause. So whether there's any contract stipulations into that where you need to pay extra, but the minimum is going to be that 45 million, isn't it, Kev? I think that you mentioned before.
I think Elliot kind of mentioned. I think when he signed his contract, he asked for that release clause to be added in, and I think there'll be a similar one when he signs for Liverpool as well. I think there'll be a release clause in that as well. That's what I've heard. I don't know how true that will be, but again, for the price that you're getting them for, absolutely superb. Do you know what I mean? And it gives everyone a little bit of a boost and a bit of a confidence going for the rest of the window that we've got this one in. Not much money is being spent. And I think what I'm getting from what I'm seeing from the players we're linked with is that versatility is very much at the priority. Players who can play numerous of positions, like Mac Allister can play a 6, an 8, and a 10. You've got other players that are linked that have got alternative. I've got versatility in them as well. So we're not buying one player to do one job. We're buying players who can come in and do a combination of things that is already they are they're made for us in a way. Because at some point in this season, there's no doubt we're going to ask for some of these players to be playing in different positions, and if that's already in the locker, it kind of benefits us, and it prevents us playing players like we have done last season, the likes of Elliott, the likes of Curtis Jones, who prefer to be playing a little bit more forward, and we're not relying on that. We've got players who can come in and do that for us straight away. So I think it clicks all the ticks, it ticks all the boxes for me.
Indeed. And I think the biggest thing for me at that price point is it dispels the issue of when we were looking at about 70 million was the initial reports. Great player, but you're saying 70 million, then you're saying, well, why don't we just bump that up a bracket? And Jude Bellingham is not far removed from that. And we're saying we dropped out of that race, so then there would always be the questions of, we got Mac Allister, but we left Jude Bellingham to sign him. So there would have been that negativity around the signing. But at a price point like this, it allows for a lot of room for other acquisitions, which is the big thing. And if you're in the stream right now, make sure you like this stream, subscribe to the page. Tomorrow coming out will be an interview with Tom from Albion Obsessed. They are a Brighton fan channel. Some great insight from him on Mac Allister. Not as much of an unknown as other players are, but we're going to have a lot of expert analysis videos on the rumored players in the weeks to come. And we want to give massive appreciation to Jen for the £3 there. Always appreciate your support. As always in the streams, means the world to us. So Mac Allister, are we saying, like barring a knock on wood Nabil Fekir situation, this is just done? Kev, when are you holding back your reservation a little bit, or are you fully celebrating this signing is almost done?
I'm basically there. I think by Wednesday, I think we'll all be done by, the next 24, 48 hours, as Fabio said. And then it's just as and when Liverpool decides to announce it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's either later on Wednesday or a little bit later on in the week. Either way, why not get excited about it? Do you know what I mean? It's virtually 99% done. There'll be a few that will be having a few reservations of the Naby Fekir situation, but I don't think it'll be that. It'll go that sour. I don't think. I think everything's done. I think he's looking for the long-term project, which is what you hear. Which is what it's quite nice to hear. Is that it's not all about the money. It's not about playing for a team that's just done well in this one season. It's about the overall plan, and it's being seduced yet again by Klopp. And I don't think it's hard not to when you speak to the man, I think.
And Charlie, for you, I mean, are you all in, all prepared for the signing? Just the announcement to come this week, supposedly.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the well, it used to be the Melwood lean, but now it might be the AXA Training Centre lean or whatever they want to call it these days. So just waiting for that. I think it's a fantastic start for the summer. If you were ever a player that was and ahhing about whether you want to join Liverpool, just because they may not offer the biggest package in terms of salary, or because they're playing on in Europa League on a Thursday, just seeing the caliber of player, World Cup winner coming into the squad, you could play with players like that, of that ilk. That's just fantastic, isn't it? I'm really, really excited. The news that we saw today with Joycey putting on Twitter, that's always the good sign, isn't it? If we're getting Joyce kind of suggesting that everything's going to be going well before the end of the week, and I think the end of the week is quite key for the player because he wants to go on an international break, have the contract signed, be announced, the main man at Liverpool, go to Argentina, celebrate with his kind of international teammates as well. So yeah, let's get this done next 2 days.
Other midfielders rumored to be signed. Fabrizio Romano, a lot of reports there. He reported that conversations have been held with the agents of Manu Kone and Khéphren Thuram. Guys that we've talked about before. Kev, we were on a stream last week detailing that we would be fans of those two guys as additions in the midfield. For you, is it, Khéphren and Manu as a combo? How happy would you be with that? Are you prioritizing those two guys for you, Kev?
For me, I would be, but again, we don't know how long this list is. Is that what Klopp has got? So how high up in the priority list is it? Do you know what I mean? Compared to, in comparison to others that we may already be linked with already by not so suitable sources. So at the minute we're linked with everyone in the world. At the minute, I would be very happy. Don't get me wrong, at the start of the window, at the end of the season, I was very frustrated as to what or where we were going due to, the likes of Joyce coming out and saying we're not getting Bellingham, which I actually thought he was going to say again for Mac Allister, but he proved me wrong, which I'm made up about. But it's for me, it's all about how they fit in, and as I said before, it's all about the versatility. We're not buying players for a set place to be playing. They need to be versatile in our midfield. I am very happy with the likes of Thuram and Kone, and as I said last week, if Thuram has got his dad's DNA in defensive work, we have got an unbelievable player in that midfield. What a monster! 6'4". If we get both of them, it goes against the physicality, again, what I said last week against Villa, which was very, very notable, is that we never had that kind of physicality in the middle of that park. And you could say since Mascherano or even Sissoko, that kind of beast of a player in that middle of that park who can just dominate and just loves tackling, as well as that progressively coming out with the ball, using the ball in the right way, no sideways passes, but running with the ball down in a forward line. I think the only thing that Thuram needs to do, or I think it's Kone, is to be able to settle and adjust as to his decision making at the end of that run. You know what I mean? Either pass it or scoring. But other than that, I'm made up. You look at the age of the lads as well, 22, 21. You don't really, if everything goes the way we want and our priorities come in, you don't have to touch that middle of that park for at least a good 5, 6, 7 years. And that plays into the hands of what Klopp wants. It gives them 7 years of players playing in a gegenpressing style without having predominantly go out and get anyone in. He can get people on the periphery who can come in and do an alternative job if it's required. It sets that midfield up going forward, and it gives a little bit less exposure to our defence and our weaknesses that have been very much at the front in last season.
Charlie, for you, haven't gotten your thoughts on any stream yet for Thuram and Kone. Any reservations? Any praise for you for them?
So loads of praise. We can go into that, but the only reservation, this is me kind of be devil's advocate, is there are other clubs interested, aren't there? There's going to be PSG, Chelsea are obviously going to be sniffing around because of the collapse deal with Ugarte, which is kind of hilarious if you read between the lines with that one. So they'll be licking their wounds. Who are they going to be going for? Are they looking at Caicedo from Brighton, or would they, try to steal kind of a note from our book and look at players that we're linked with and go for those type of players? Who knows? That's the only kind of reservation is what other clubs can offer the players, and will they have their heads turned? Hopefully, if they take that the same kind of understanding as what Mac Allister had, was Liverpool are that project team. You know, you got one of the best managers, if not the best manager, to try to get something out of this team. It's going to be Klopp. You want to be playing in that team. There is going to be positions available to you. Whereas with Chelsea, you're not too sure about what's going to be happening in 6 months' time. You know, who knows whether it's going to be the same manager? Will the owner be inside, outside the club? Who knows? Those are the kind of questions I have. In terms of what they bring to the table, they've got everything that we've wanted. I remember kind of like when I first joined the transfer room, we spoke about Caicedo and that destroyer that we needed in that middle of the park, because we just got shown up so many times the season that's just gone, and you've got that in 2 players, you got that in 3 players. You could say with Alexis as well. So it's a unit. You know, you bring those 3 players in. They may not get the time to play straight away because you got Henderson, you got Thiago, you got other players, Fabinho, that are more well established. But once they get going, once they get incorporated in the team, it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be an engine. That's the thing. And I totally agree with everything that Kev's just said as well.
Jamie was asking, you mentioned Ugarte, Charlie, from Sporting. I would have been really upset if he went to Chelsea, but the reports are that they are not going to pay the same price point that PSG are willing to. There are some other factors in there that have kind of cropped into that transfer. Any reservations, you know, on missing out on him? He would have been about £60 million, 22-year-old Uruguayan. Charlie, I'll toss to you first because you mentioned him. Would you have wanted to see us in for
him? Yes, I would have. Initially, obviously, he would have been on the list, wouldn't he? Exactly the type of player that we would be looking for, that type of destroyer. But the numbers that would be mentioned, I think the fact that PSG have gone in with a monster offer makes you kind of wonder where's his head at, but also his agent, because I think he's managed by Mendes, who's quite big. Obviously, he's massive, and he wants a good payday. I know previously we have made agents very happy with transfers in the past. Whether we actually are taking on that type of model going forward, who knows? And in terms of quality, yes, he could bring, but in terms of the finances, I don't think it's right. You know, you look at the Mac Allister deal, it just speaks volumes. Comparing that to Ugarte and Mason Mount and other players of that ilk, who knows? It's going to be one of those kind of sliding door moments for a lot of clubs with that type of player, I think.
Kev, for you on Ugarte, likely headed to PSG. Should we have tried to get in on that race for a player of his caliber?
I think what you're seeing with Liverpool is that as soon as it gets to a bidding war, we just walk away. And I think that's been noticeable in a few of these already, that we're not going to get tied down and bogged down in waiting all summer. I think the priority is Klopp wants his 3 at least in. The 3 priorities he wants in as soon as he can get them in, that's fine. Anyone else that comes in is either on the periphery or is a nice to have in that sense of the way. I think the priority is always going to be in the midfield area. I would have loved to have Ugarte. I loved the way he played in the man of match he got against I think it was Benfica, which he drew 2-2. He was standout, and his ball distribution is he's very good in one-to-one situations. If you put him to mark someone in the middle of the park, he can do that with no bother or doubt. His passing's great. He gets forward as well as much as he can. He's got an engine on him, and I would have loved him. And his game, if anyone wants to look at the snippets against Juventus, I think it is in the Champions League this season, it shows what kind of player you're going to get from. I think the price tag is another thing. We possibly would have met that, but the problem comes with bringing in a kind of Ugarte is then, you know, as we've seen with PSG now see that everyone's going after midfielders. So what do? They then sign Asensio, and now they're going to sign Ugarte because there's no identity at PSG. PSG just want to buy about players and bringing players in. I don't see a kind of identity at PSG. I just think they look at who the top teams are, who are they trying to address, and then go in for that block. I am made up in the sense that we have kind of missed out, because it just shows, and I agree with what Charlie said, it goes with where his head is at the minute. He His head at the minute is on financial, and they're going to go into PSG is the end product. It's not. That should be your end product when you're 30, 35, because that's their kind of identity at PSG. Players come to the end of their day. You look at all the Parisians that have left. You know, they've had to buy Mbappe back, who was a Parisian. You look at the French team. How many of that French team should be playing for PSG exactly? Do you know what I mean? So that's where the mentality is, and I'm kind of in a way gutted we have missed him because the player he is, but not for the mindset, and I think that's also prominent as well. But at the end of the day, with the alternatives we've got, and as Daniel says about Lavia, Lavia's another option there as well that is Premier League based. Do you know what I mean? He may cost us a little bit, but I don't think anywhere as much as what Ugarte would be. And fee, his reported transfer wages are going to be is just ridiculous. You got to walk away when they start coming in with those big numbers, and gladly, we haven't got in that. And I think what kind of makes it even better as well is the fact that we've walked away and we've seen what's happened, and we've gone, oh, I reckon the recruitment team have gone, oh, we've missed one there. I'm glad we've missed him out of there. Like, do you know what I mean? We didn't expect him to be like that, so it works well. Rant's over now.
We appreciate a good Kev rant. I definitely think that the big factor for Liverpool is definitely avoiding bidding wars. That's very clear across everything. I mean, you see a guy we'll talk about now is Gabri Veiga. Rumored release clause for him. Mac Allister, whether you call it a release clause or some clause that makes it less negotiable, that's a factor there. If Khéphren Thuram, if there gets too much sniffing around him and that price begins to inflate, there are other options, obviously. I think that he would be a nice guy to get. Let's talk about Veiga. Not a guy that I'm terribly familiar with. Daniel talking about him a little bit, and he's a very interesting option for Celta Vigo. Young midfielder, bit more on the attacking progressive side. Charlie, I'll toss it to you on him. I'm not going to claim to be the foremost expert. How much are you aware of him as a player?
I mean, I've watched bits of him. Not too familiar with what he's done at Celta Vigo. I've seen the snippets, seen kind of the stats. But his age profile is pretty interesting because he wouldn't count as that non-homegrown player. So he's under 23, 24, whatever the rule is. So in terms of what that would mean to our numbers, wouldn't mean much. But he's obviously got the quality because his age, he's really, really good. He's obviously broken into first team at a top 5 league. He's got everything he needs. I think the interesting thing, just like what we just said about Ugarte, is the other player that we were looking at who's kind of similar in terms of age and profile was Alex Scott. So the fee, I believe, has actually got too big for Liverpool in terms of what we were prepared to pay for the player who's playing Bristol City, Bristol Rovers, whoever it is. And that's probably got a little bit too big. And he hasn't got top flight experience. So when you're comparing it to that and the lad from Celta Vigo has, he's going to be a future star. I just hope it is for us rather than anyone else. That's obviously going to be the main thing. It's just the numbers. It's going to be the numbers. I'd prefer let's get the first team players coming in. You're talking about Thuram and Manu coming in. They settle in really well. I think the Veiga is going to be a bit of a luxury for us. If we can get him, great. If not, don't worry. We can focus on other areas of the team.
Kev, for you. You kind of rattled off some facts for us pre-stream that you've got loaded up for him.
I did. That was when we weren't live. But no, to be honest, I see him more as an alternative to Mason Mount in a sense. And he plays predominantly in centre mid. That's where he scores most of his goals. He scored 8 goals, 2 assists. He's had 1 game as centre forward for them. He's just over 6 foot, just under 6'1". Great player, versatile. You know what I mean? Can play centre mid, attack and mid, and if required, can play up front. I think you look at that. He's got his goal, his touches in attack and penalty areas, 89% percentile. Successful take-ons, 88% percentile. He's very, very forward going and very creative. And I think that's why we're looking at him. And I think why Newcastle have kind of walked away is that because they've got Champions League football, they thought that would be enough to bring him in. But his first and only choice is us. And it just shows the level of, and it goes back to what I said at the start, it shows what the seduction is at Liverpool and how big the club is, that even without Champions League football, we can still bring these players in, regardless of who you are. If you're not a Liverpool, dare I say a Man United or a Man City, you'll always go to that. Do you know what I mean? And if Klopp's talking to you, he's very good. He scored 2 in his last game on Saturday against Barcelona at home. So, you know, he shouts as though he can score goals, he can create goals. That's kind of been what's been missing in our midfield. We rely heavily on the likes of Thiago coming in. He's for the value you're getting for Veiga, it's absolutely, you know, again, another young lad, and it's good to see the versatility that we're looking at and what we're trying to bring in as in our recruitment team, and it goes a lot. It's a shame about Alex Scott because he's actually played well. It's just the problem you've got with him is that he's not, as Charlie said, he hasn't played at a top level, and because he's an English player, you then get the English price for potential, which is what we've been hit with in the past and other clubs. So, and then the likes of Man City come in, and then it goes up 10, 20 million. And then you start thinking, well, is there an alternative that we can bring in who's got virtually the same stats aboard? And he ticks the boxes from what I've seen. I haven't seen much of him. Don't get me wrong, I've seen glimpses of him on Sky Sports and on YouTube, and he looks as though he's $1 million, do you know what I mean? And well worth more than 30 million. But how many players have we said that for in the past? Sean Dundee looked good. Look what happened with him.
We're going to do our best.
Yeah. Jean-Michel Ferry, another one.
Yeah. Loving it.
We're doing our best to bring in an expert in Spanish football to get some insight into him.
Kev Balogun.
You guys are just rattling off some names here. He would be a fascinating signing. Would bring us up to 4 really quick from both of you. So there's been, with the addition of him as a rumored signing alongside Kone and Thuram with Mac Allister, that's 4 midfielders. Do we see that? Do we want 4? I mean, more is better typically, but should we be aiming for 4 rather than the 3 that we've kind of almost settled for? Charlie, I'll toss that to you.
3 midfielders would be the minimum. As I said before, if we can get 4th one, that's actually quite a good luxury, then great. If not, as I said, there's other parts of the team that we need to kind of focus on. I know that they're concentrating on a defender as well. So Mickey van der Den, I think that's his name, from Wolfsburg, has been mentioned. So he's a player that I would be really, really interested in. If not, Kev's favourite, Timber. Would be a really, really good shout. As I said, it's future-proofing the team, isn't it? Because you're bringing in that player that is able to kind of start stepping into, I don't want to say it, but Virgil's big shoes at the back. So we need to try to start thinking about that in the next few years. And if we can do it sooner rather than later, not have the same situation in 2-3 years' time where we're kind of getting stressed out with the lack of signings, lack of kind of cohesion, etc. If we can avoid that, that's better. Hopefully the club have learned about that and start thinking about future-proofing the team.
Yeah, for you, Charlie, I recommend you prioritize maybe a defender rather than a 4th midfielder.
Yeah, that 100%. Yeah, that's my preference anyway.
Kev, you're in the same boat there.
Absolutely. I'd be testing the water with the Sporting lad. Is it Yugi? What's his name at Sporting?
Ignacio.
Yeah, that's the one, Charlie. Thank you.
Yeah.
You've got him. I'd even be looking, although we haven't been spending much in midfield or on one player, does that leave enough to go for the Serbian Gavardio, a left back? As a left centre back, because ideally he would be the perfect replacement for Virgil, and I'd probably test the water with him. But I agree with Charlie. Get your 3 priorities in midfield, and then start looking elsewhere especially in the backward line, and see what we can do there. And even, you know, a keeper if Kelleher wants to leave as well. Do you know what I mean? You know, we need to start looking at that and but for me that's where the priority should be. 3 in midfield first, and then start looking elsewhere in the backward line to try and upgrade what we've already got if necessary.
And the goalkeeper one. Sorry, Jack. The goalkeeper situation isn't one where we're looking at replacing Alisson. It is to provide him that good quality backup. Kelleher's great. Unfortunately, in the last game, didn't kind of show his capabilities. I think that's maybe a bit of rustiness, a bit of kind of his head is elsewhere, holiday, whatnot. But I think the situation with Becker is Becker's going to be number one. He is going to be playing predominantly all the games apart from the League Cup and the FA Cup. I would suggest that he plays the Europa League games on the majority. But that person that comes in needs to kind of try to understand that. Whereas, go on, Kev.
No, I was just going to come in on there. I'm sorry to interrupt. I would go, because if you look at September onwards, we're playing League, Europa League, FA, League, Carabao Cup, League, then Europa. I would predominantly be looking at the fringe players and the likes of Kelleher, if he's still around, to be playing in those games. I wouldn't be freeing up all our main 11, starting 11 for those months. That month from September onwards, we're playing predominantly two games a week, and depending on where we're playing in Europe, I would sooner be going in the group stages, treat it like the Carabao Cup, go with the kids, play with the fringe players, get them a bit of, one thing that they all crave for, which is what Wolves fans want from our fringe players, is that team, that that match fitness. You get that with the Europa League, you get that with the Carabao Cup, and then they'll predominantly get their confidence up. I think it would benefit Gomez playing in those games, and that's where I would be reluctant to sell the likes of a Gomez and probably sell Phillips instead, because it allows you to keep hold of a player who has been good. I know he hasn't met the mark since the season we won the title, but I think it gives him it beds him to get a bit of confidence in the first couple of months of the season and get a bit of game time that he wouldn't necessarily get. Play our main 11 for the league games, and then allow the fringe players along with our backup goalkeeper to get time playing together in the Europa League and the Carabao Cup, which will start in September. That's my own personal opinion. That's all I was going to say. Charlie, carry on, mate.
No. But it's a valid point, though, Kevin. It is absolutely a valid point, because the number of games that we will play up to Christmas, up and including Christmas, it absolutely gets mental, doesn't it? So for whatever reason, I don't know if there's going to be a winter break this coming season. Who knows? But that's a question that needs to be answered, and then we can look at that. But the number of games that we do play does possibly does lead itself to getting a good quality backup. If it's not going to be Kelleher, we need to have someone that can actually play those games competently. But we do understand that they're not going to be number one. But yeah, it's interesting.
It's going to be mad next season, because I think the Europa League is going to be predominantly like the Carabao Cup. We're not going to be bothered about it. It's a cup that realistically we don't really want to be involved in, but we're in it. So we'll just carry on. And it's a bit of an irritant for me up until you get out of the group stages and you're in February, March time, and then sound. I'm all over it now. But
and it's AFCON as well.
You know what I mean? Exactly. So, you got the AFCON on as well over January. I don't think that's going to affect much of our players either. I think a lot of people think it will be. No, not as many as it would have been had we had the likes of Mane and the likes of Keita still around. So that's the way I see it. I think we need to look at the games in between September till the end of November, because you've also got an international break as well, and how many games we'll be playing. And we're predominantly playing around Europe, because if we've got 4 games to play, I wouldn't be taking any of our main stars to go over there and then play on the Sunday and get fatigued because of the time that they've spent getting over there and coming back. Let the youngsters go and play. If we get through, it's a bonus next season. We've got 2 ways of getting to the Champions League the following season. We've got the League way and we've got the Europa League way. The Europa League way is just a bit of a bonus. If we get through, we should get through. We've got the quality players and the depth in the squad to be able to do that. And that's where you need to bring, the fringe players in. It gives them they'll have more of an opportunity next season of playing in Europe than more so than any other season that ever at the club, because it's not Champions League. If it's Champions League, then you go with your starting main 11 and make sure that you get through, and then you play them. This, it's a free one. Bang, there you go. Go and have fun. If we get through, happy days. If it gets a little bit and we need to bring people over, then we utilize the main 11 for those games where we need to win, like the home games, possibly. Possibly you get through on all your home games, so you play them in that. That's how I would work it, and I think tactically we need to be looking at that. It's going to be another 60-odd game season if we go like we did in the quad season. So if you base it on that, we then break the games up and strategically playing players on the fringe at the start of the season builds them confidence, gets them the match fitness up. So when they come off the pitch, they're already up to the match fitness, and we're not wasting 10, 15 minutes for the players to get into the game. You've got players who can wholeheartedly come in and do a job. So that's where I would be with it. Do you know what I mean? You make a great point about it, but for me, I just see it. I see games pile up. Do you know what I mean? I don't want injuries. Do you know what I mean? So.
Yeah. No, Kev, you've convinced me. You've convinced me. So I'm on board.
The homegrown situation.
We'll go to Dublin anyway. We'll go to Dublin next year anyway, right? So
exactly, we'll be all on the boat.
I'll fly over. Yeah. I'll fly over for that.
Good.
You better have to.
I think I have to, honestly, for a final. The homegrown situation is an interesting one, because I think with Kelleher, you move him on, you probably got to bring someone in, because do you want Adrian being your backup? Doesn't fill me with confidence, especially as you mentioned, Kev. This is frustrating that last season was the way it was, because we call it a year of transition, but it shouldn't have been. This should be the transition year now, because if you bring a lot of young players, you're playing in the Europa League, you've got the opportunity to, like next year, we should be capitalizing on the primes of a lot of these players. But if we finish top 4 and win the Europa League, that's a good season to challenge for the Champions League and the Premier League the year after, with a big summer here with the thought of growing them over a season. So I don't know what we're going to do with Kelleher. There's a lot of interesting situations there. But the homegrown situation, so the rumors with Kelleher might be able to get some money from him. Carvalho, also rumored to potentially be going, means that, with Nat Phillips as well, a lot of these fringe players that might be our biggest assets to get some money for are English and our homegrown spots, which will limit our capacity to bring in non-homegrown players. So, Charlie, I'll toss it to you, kind of getting away from Kelleher and more broadly to the homegrown situation. Do you think it will become a priority and we may have to sacrifice on a signing or two, or change a signing or two to sign a homegrown player? Or do you think we're going to be able to navigate that issue?
Yeah, I think so. I think the club are definitely aware of the situation. They're paid a lot more money than me to think about these type of situations. So if they haven't already accounted for that type of situation occurring, whether we lose players or we want to bring in players, keep the players that we have, they do have that plan. The fact that we are going for certain players like Veiga and Thuram and Kone kind of makes you think that they do have plans in place to try to keep the numbers the way it should be. I still don't understand what the actual rules would be in terms of the players that are over 24 and whether they're homegrown. I thought Robertson was homegrown, but being a Scot, he doesn't count, so he would be non-homegrown. But either way, I'm sure the club would be savvy enough to make sure that they don't fall foul of it and lose players. Having to keep players out of certain squads, the Premier League squad being the main one. But it's going to be interesting. There are squad players that I wouldn't mind seeing leave the club. Phillips being one. If we can get some money, because that will pay for someone else, then great. But we have to be clever about it. Whether that's looking at players that are kind of under 21, i.e. Veiga, so he kind of fits into that mold. Are we looking at that? So, let's see.
Indeed. Let's focus on Fabio Carvalho in particular. So there were the reports coming out that Leipzig were making a move for him. around 12 million euro offer for him, rejected by Liverpool. They only want to loan him out. This is according to Sky Sports Germany, I believe. They only want to loan him or sell him with a buyback option, which is not something we really have done a ton in recent years. There may be one on Brewster, is the most recent one I remember. For us selling a young guy, get some money, and then maybe bring him back in. He's a tough one. He's a homegrown guy, as mentioned by the transfer room comment there in the page. He didn't kick on. It really seems a tough fit in the 11 for him. Kev, for Carvalho, how do you balance the need for him to get the game time he needs to grow, the potential money that could come in for selling him, versus saying, all right, the Europa League is an option to play him, but can you tailor your team around him? It's a tough one for you, Kev, on Carvalho. Where do you stand?
It's difficult because we don't play the way Fulham did in the season where when he came after he came to us. He's a number 10, always will be for me, and we don't play that. He's going to find it hard to get into our starting 11. I would hope, and I agree with what Charlie said about our recruitment and all like that. They'll be aware of this. I think the idea is that he's still within 4 years. Still got 4 years left at the club. We paid 7.7 million, I think, via tribunal for him. So I think the club would want at least a release, a buyback clause within that. I agree with what I think Charlie's put in, is that it doesn't make sense if he's homegrown to let him go. I would be persuading him and saying you'll have more game time this season than you'll ever have at the club, even more than what you had last year. I think something's gone on. There's something gone on with Carvalho after that Newcastle game, and with him saying that he's left Portugal. Something has gone on, whether it's his attitude, whether it's something other than that. We'll never know, possibly, and we won't know for a good 30 years when Carvalho brings his autobiography out, and only then that we'll go, oh yeah, remember that. But for me, it's just it's a difficult one. I would love to keep him. I would. I think he'll have more opportunities to play, as I've mentioned before in my second rant. But I would be looking at bringing, if it can't be done and we get money in for him, then I'd definitely hope that there's a buyback option for him, because it needs to be put in place. That's the minimum of anything. He wants to move for more game time. I personally think he wants to move from England. He likes the Leipzig idea. It's similar, similar style of football to what we play. It gets him out of the country, gets his head down, gets his head on the game. But I agree with what Charlie's put in the comments. If he's a homegrown talent, you shouldn't be getting rid of him. But it's a catch-22. What do you do with him? He wants to play more football. He's not going to get that. Can't guarantee it here. He's probably getting guarantees from Leipzig that he will be playing. That's where a bit of common sense comes in. I know you put the release clause in, but it's difficult for me, to be honest, Jack. My heart's torn on it. I'm going to sit on the fence with that one, because I really will be keeping hold of him because he is homegrown. If he wasn't homegrown, then I'll be going sound. Let's move on, and we move on and be ruthless. I don't think we can do that unless there's other options available that we're unaware of and they're coming in. Then yeah, fair enough. But if there's not, you've got to keep him. You've got to.
In the comments of the stream, and if you're watching this back on YouTube, put in the comments, Fabio Carvalho, keep, sell, loan, build the team around him, whatever your rationale is. And then just explain why you think that way on Carvalho. While people do that, Charlie, for you on Carvalho, what is your thought process for the decision tree that should be done with Carvalho?
I would be ruthless and let's move on. Let's move it on, because he's a young player, and I'm thinking about him and the personality. Maybe, as what Kev kind of suggested, was there may be something that's happening in the background, He did leave the Portugal under-21s team, didn't he? Said he just wouldn't play for them. So something's happened there where a player should be loving his football. He's just had the biggest move of his life, performing well in games, winning games, scoring goals, whatnot. And it just hasn't kicked on. There's something that's just happened in the background. What he probably needs for his career is that next move to be the right one. So for me, I would be pushing whoever he's going to go to. If it's Leipzig, I'd say just get me through the door, work it out, and we can go from there. Personally, I would like a buyback, but that's just kind of, I wouldn't want to see a player go on, develop to be a world class player, and we're not in a shout with him for that player in the future. That's the only reasoning. Whether it actually happens, generally, if a player leaves, it means that they're gone, and that's kind of the cruel fact of where we are at elite level sport. So for me, let's cash in. Let's try to focus on other areas of the team. There's enough attacking players, as Kev kind of said at the start of the call. Mac Allister, I always get kind of tempted to say Gary Mac. Alexis Mac can play 10 as well. So yes, he's a box-to-box. That's probably his preferred kind of position if you want to box him down in kind of terms. But there's other players. Gapco can drop back and whatnot. So we've got players. Curtis Jones, another fan favourite, can play at that level as well. In that position, has got more about him as well. So yeah, let's cash in. Let's get more depth in other areas.
There is a poll in the YouTube live stream chat, so you can make a vote in there.
What's the current situation on that, Jack?
We'll update it in a little bit. I want to get people's unbiased votes. It's surprising, though, is what I will say. Maybe not surprising, but I'm interested by it. We'll dig into that in a second. I think it is going to be interesting to see how we balance the squad around him, because he really doesn't have a perfect fit into the 11, as we've mentioned. But also, there's a lot more money to be made for him, So, in my opinion, a loan makes the most sense, because if we loan him out, pick a good loan where he will fit in the tactic, we get some game time, I think Leipzig would be a good fit. I probably wouldn't want a loan, but it's an awkward one, because if you sell him to Leipzig with a buyback, say you sell him for 20 million, buy back 30 million, or 40 million, whatever it is, they get double their money if they do that arrangement. You then say he kills it in the Bundesliga and the Champions League. Do they qualify for the Champions League? Whatever they qualified for. Say he just absolutely fills in Nkunku's shoes perfectly, scores 20 goals, and value rockets up to 80 million. We buy him from his buyback for 40. Are we then putting him into a 11 that still doesn't fit him? Because the squad isn't going to change, I think, rapidly to fit a number 10 next year. I don't think we're making signings to make that long-term change. So are we buying him to then sell him in the same summer to just do a bit of stock flipping, with this human? I don't know. It's a weird one there with the buyback for me, Kev.
It is, but I think it's something that you need to put in. You can't let potentially good players or young players who've got the potential, and especially English players, to just leave for nothing and not thinking in that release clause to bring back, whether that's a 30% transfer option or on his next deal that if he leaves and stuff like that. A buyback is paramount. I agree with you. His stock is only going to go higher, and I don't see how it doesn't go up. He comes back 2-3 years later. You hope that he's got the mentality to play and has matured into a player and is thinking more about his football and not about his attitude off the pitch. That may deem that he is, here I am, I've made it kind of thing. So you hope that he could actually learn. He'll learn a lot at Leipzig. I think he'll join a team that is probably similar to ourselves in the kind of attacking kind of play. He'll understand how to play football. I think that's one thing he's probably has missed, is that I think it's a complex. It's a bit like people who don't know American football and think it's easy to play quarterback and throw balls around, but you don't know the tactics involved and the positional sense and what you need to be known and the plays and what certain teams are going to do defensively against you and how to get out of the pocket quicker if you need to. So you that's the analogy I would use. I don't think it's easy to come into this Liverpool side. I think he's got lost at times. I think he's done well at times in the short periods and glimpses we've seen of him. But again, I go back to how bad the situation is when he comes into this Liverpool team. This wasn't our strongest team. This was a team that was fractured. There was a lot of, we had a lot of injuries. Then we had players playing in the wrong positions. He's come into a team and he's asked to be in play in a position, and he's looking around and he's got new players around him who can't speak the language. He's got players around him who are old and can't make the tackles anymore. He's getting asked to do, and he hasn't felt confidence in any time he's played. And I get that. He showed against Newcastle what he can do. He's got the young tenacity to win, to be a winner for us. Then he goes off the boil because of whatever's happened. It's in his locker. It's how you unlock it. And if he has to go to Leipzig to gain the knowledge and the maturity to play football and understand how to play in that kind of football, then he comes back. And he's an option. And by then, he'll be fighting for a place in the team, no doubt of that. At the end of the day, how old would he be? About 23, 24? Do you know what I mean? Go ahead, Charlie, mate. Jump in, mate.
No. So
I'm just waffling now.
No, that's okay. So devil's advocate again, when it comes to a loan, if I was a player, so let's use the Arthur Melo kind of situation. He's coming to the team. He hasn't played any minutes. Now the reason being is we can't rely on him. Injuries aside, there's a situation there where Klopp knows that the player is not going to be there next year. So why is he going to put all his effort into giving him time when he could be using that for other players, i.e. Curtis Jones, right? He's an absolute revelation in the last 10 games. So if he's going somewhere as a lone player and the manager doesn't kind of buy into it, or there's a change of management halfway through, which is likely to happen at certain clubs. So if he goes to Leipzig and they change manager and that manager doesn't like Fabio, then it's just going to be sitting around for another 6 months and his value's not going to go up. However, if it's a buyback, if we do sell, we've got the money in the bank. That's the kind of the reason I have. It gives Fabio that kind of he's more settled at that point as well. If he knows that he's at Leipzig, he's there on a contract, not a loan. So therefore, he can kind of work his way up. And if there's a situation where he can come back to England and for Liverpool, great. It's that devil's advocate. I'm kind of trying to put another spin on it.
Yeah.
Who knows what the right answer is?
I think it's a great point though that you make, Charlie. And I'll give you the results of the poll. Not complete, conclusive Liverpool fan base, but 50% saying they want to loan him, 23% want to sell, 27% want to keep. So just barely edging out sell is keep. And for the longest time, keep was around 15% of the vote. So not many folks wanted to keep him in comparison to moving him on. My thought process kind of stems right off of what you were talking about, Charlie, which is that I don't think even having a buyback is smart, because it's smart. It covers your ass in the sense of like, if he explodes, you have something to tether him back to get more money for him. I don't think he just has a spot in this 11. I don't think that the system will ever perfectly suit him under Klopp, which is what his contract's still 2026. So it's the next foreseeable future. So if you move him on, I would much prefer to see a sell-on clause where Leipzig are going to probably sell him for more money as well. Try and get 20% of that next sale. So you get a little bit more from that. But I think you should try and move him on for a Dominic Szoboszlai or a Josko Gvardiol from Leipzig. Try and leverage him as part of that deal and say there will be no buyback. He's your player. Go develop him. Clean cut in that sense.
However, we'll have
but we will want him to be part of the deal for Szoboszlai or Gvardiol, and then you're saying maybe it's not like he's going to completely offset the entire cost of it, but it's 20 million of an 80 million for Gvardiol or 20 of a 40 for Szoboszlai, and then it's like if you don't give us this other player, you're not getting Carvalho. So it gives them reason to negotiate with you in comparison to other clubs. That's what I would do. I could see maybe it's not as direct as that, where one player goes almost in exchange for the other. I would see that. And I think this is a great point from Halior as well. Just that Curtis Jones, we thought maybe he's going to be number 10 long term, but then he kind of almost was able to augment his game and to be an essential midfielder. Carvalho maybe could become a left winger, maybe in this system, like a high producing left winger. I can't really see it in the foreseeable future, so I would personally try and use him as leverage for a negotiation with Leipzig. This is an interesting comment from Austin. I actually completely agree, like 100% agree. If we can bring in a talented guy at that left center back spot, I'm interested in your guys' thoughts. I was going to do a video actually on it, kind of detailing it in a lot more depth. Kev, we've talked about Robertson a little bit, I believe, in last stream.
Yeah.
But I'll go to Charlie first, actually, and then I'll let you kind of respond to him.
Oh no, I was waiting to see what Kev said.
I'm putting you under the gun.
Okay, right. So it's good. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I have thought about this. In the formation that we have adopted in the last 10 games, it does give Robertson more. It highlights kind of deficiencies in his game in terms of trying to cover that left centre back-ish role. And I say that ish is kind of the way it is. Robertson's game is very much kind of it is a left wing, left back, left wing back type player. I would never ever want to see Robertson sold, because I think he should remain in the club until he retires, because he's kind of epitomised Klopp in the sense of he came from Hull, relegated 8 million. Everyone wrote him off. He kind of fought his way into that team. You look at Liverpool, the team itself. We fought our way and made ourselves champions of Europe, champions of England. For that, Robertson's always going to be key, and kind of. I have a personal soft spot for that type of player, because he puts his heart into everything. Ability-wise, there may be some questions being raised about that situation. I'd prefer, if we are going to stick with this formation, we start looking at that left-sided centre back that can play left back kind of versatility, to have that as an option, and we can see how it goes and how it develops over the season. But then also give us that future proofing, what I was talking about with Van Dijk and allowing for whoever comes in, Inacio, Van der Deen, whatever his name is. Gravidal, if he comes in, he'd be fantastic. It's that long-term future planning. That's the thing about Liverpool. We haven't planned enough to be able to put ourselves in a position to start bringing in one or two players. What we're doing is actually bringing in 5-6 players to try to mitigate for past failures. So I don't know if that answers your question. I'm really interested to see what Kev says, but I'd be up for it. It's just it's not my first option. It's kind of something to develop.
I agree, Charlie. Kev,
okay,
where do you stand?
I would have a heart attack if Robertson goes and we're left with Tsimikas in that back as the only backup we've got. I would have a heart attack with an IQ of Moreno and the pace of a Maguire. I would, unless we're bringing in Alphonso Davies, then I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be interested if or even a Parvad, possibly, but I wouldn't be. We found a new way of playing with Trent, which is great, and it's great when it works. When it doesn't work, it still highlights the weakness we've got, which is on that right hand side. What you're then proposing is that we suddenly have, when Tsimikas plays, we have the same problems on the right as what we do on the left predominantly. For me, I would be looking at a replacement for Verge, yeah. If it's required, I'd be playing 3 at the back and see how it works. But our main thing is providing cover for the space that Trent leaves and the likes of Robbo leaves, which is why we're looking for 3 midfielders with an engine on them that we've gone against for the last 2-3 seasons and haven't brought anyone in. That's where I would be with it. I think Robertson can still do a job. I think he struggled last season. And that's, but tell me a player who hasn't struggled last season. Who comes out of last season apart from Alisson with shining? a lot of players had a dip in form. People getting older, teams gradually getting dismantled in front of you, in front of your eyes. It's an option, what you're saying, Jack. For me, I would go, if we're getting young players in and a gegenpressing style of football, then I'll be wanting a player like an Alphonso Davies. I want pace in that in left back position. Someone who's got the pace but is also defensively minded as well. That's what I'd like to play. Now, if that means we look for an alternative at left back, that's fine. But please don't leave him with Tsimikas at the back, please, Jack. Don't.
That would be
Don't
bad.
do it to me.
I do think it's definitely a train of thought that hopefully is being.
Oh yeah, it is, Jack. Oh, I totally agree, and it's something that we need to be looking at because it has worked. My only problem is when it doesn't work, we're still exposing the issues that we've got, and unless you've got quality players in those back five, starting players, then that's the only way you're going to be able to address the issues we've got. We're still going to have the ball over the right hand side, and Kanate running like 20 miles an hour to get it. What we need is those players in the middle that do what Henderson does and provide the cover for Trent at his peak. Sorry,
I was just about to say, what I was just about to say was the Villa game kind of highlighted those issues.
Exactly.
If we had a better midfield, the situations where they created the goals, the ball over onto Trent's side where they scored the goal, that would be stopped because we have the midfield to be able to stop and provide that protection for the back four.
But I do agree with you, Jack, that it does need to be looked at and questioned and looked into a little bit more. I'm probably looking at it naively because I'm looking at it from what we've done well and what we've achieved and what we've accomplished well with a back four at the back. And I think it is a development of the way we play. Now, does that mean that we go totally three at the back and then go with more progressive five in midfield, say? Do you know what I mean? It gives you the option to, but you need the people with the ability to be able to be defensively minded as well as progressively going forward as well. And do you get that balance by playing with the three at the back that you would normally get by playing the four? And all it means is you get younger players who've got more of an engine on them and more who are also defensively good, but also have the pace and the ability to get up and down. It's fascinating, honestly, Jack. I'm all around it, but I'm being a bit naive with it at the minute, and a bit reluctant. That's
100%.
just me in my old age.
I think I'm gonna potentially do a video in the next couple days, kind of detailing the scope of what I.
Yeah.
I think so the question we have to ask ourselves is the system that we saw for the last 10, 12 matches where Trent inverts, Robertson tucks in a little bit to offer the back three protection. In that system, if that's what we're going with, Robertson is quite honestly, if the midfield is addressed, he becomes the biggest liability in that system.
Yeah.
Konate being the only guy who really played that right center back spot is also a problem. So it's not like he is, impossible to play there, but he becomes the next spot to fix. So if you can bring in a ideal replacement for him, I think you move both him and Tsimikas on and just get rid of the idea of left backs altogether, basically. Which would be quite something. I'll detail it in greater depth. I don't think that will happen. I would like to see it happen. Not like I want to see Robertson sold. He still is legend, can do a job. But we haven't in recent years sold players almost at their peak, when like their value is about to start plummeting. I don't think Robertson's value goes up from this point. I think it's only down from here. So the question is, Charlie, do we keep him, for the rest of his career? He retires here, or do you move him on now? That's the thing there. Go ahead.
The thing, so it's a difficult question. I'll put it out to everyone here and on the comments, write in, who do you think would buy Robertson? And I say that because of would he stay within the UK? Would he go back to Scotland? They can't afford him. Would he go to another team in England? Would we sell to another team? Would he move abroad? Possibly not. Whether there's something there for him. There's a difference between him and Mane. Manny's quite happy to go back to Germany because that's where he played for years, didn't he? So he played at Salzburg, didn't he? So he was playing in Europe anyway before he moved to England. There's that question.
I don't know. It would be funny seeing, like, there was the rumor of 40 million from Madrid, Real Madrid.
Yeah, but
it would be funny seeing Robertson, learning some Spanish, because he's such like a Scottish like guy.
Yeah.
I think a team that wants to compete right now and wants to bring in. I don't think he's the best left back in Europe, but I think it's hard in a good system when he's fit and firing to name a few guys, like many guys better than him that you would prefer as an overlapping proper left back. So there is value there. There's value for us to keep him, obviously. And it also allows us, maybe the system gets found out, we want to have variety. Maybe the ideal world where it's not so extreme is you bring in an option in that left center back spot and have Robertson too. So you can grow somebody into that role, and you also can still play your typical back four, with the fullbacks who overlap.
One thing I will say is it's easy to adopt new ideas when you have a successful team. So I think Kev, you kind of alluded to it as well with the Carvalho situation. If we have a successful team, players like what we're talking about, those luxury players in Veiga, as a potential coming in, as what we had with Carvalho, what we have with the formation that we're looking to propose to use full time next season, that those luxuries become easier to adopt because you're successful, because you can go back to default and still batter teams. The way that we were 2-3 years ago, we were finishing teams off within 30 minutes, and then that allowed us to possibly look at other situations, other players that could come in. It's easy to say that.
I think 4-3-3 is our template, but then you've seen how well this inverted right back has worked as well, and playing potentially what Jack's proposing as 3 at the back. Can be played against the lesser teams for me, and I think it's something that we should be able to adopt to and adapt to within game as well. If things aren't going well within a 4-3-3 system, you revert to that. So at the minute, it's easy to play against Liverpool because you know what they're going to do. We need a bit of versatility, and that is all. I don't know who they're going to be playing, and it questions and queries them, and then we. That's one thing I've loved about Liverpool in the past, is that 1 minute we'll play one way, and then next minute, a minute later, bang, we've changed it up, and we go different in a different style. And we, there's an option to play all 4 up front with Nunes, Salah, Gakpo, and Diaz. That's an alternative. And that's where I think the versatility in the players in midfield that we're trying to bring in is going to provide us with that possibility of doing. And as Jack quite rightly alludes to, with playing 3 at the back, it's an option that we should be looking at, and it's an option that you've got enough time to deal with the amount of games we're going to be playing next season. It gives you an opportunity to play those styles. But no, it's interesting, honestly, Jack. It's got me head. You've got me head twisted and intrigued as to how it could work. But I'm more on caution and like to know what that means weakness wise. Then does that pose more weakness, or is it less weakness? Do you know what I mean by doing that? Does that mean then we're open on both sides, which possibly you could be? So that's all.
But it's that question that we spoke about earlier in the show, didn't we? About three midfielders and 1 defender. That 1 defender allows us to kind of start thinking about those different things, those different scenarios. So yeah, I'm sure Klopp and the team there that he has are fully aware.
We'll get together with Jack. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Exactly.
All I'm going to say, the last I'll say on this: if Newcastle willing to pay 35 mil for Tierney, we got a Scottish fullback who's twice the player, twice the price, and Mr. Robertson could be playing some Champions League football again next year. That's what I would say. The last is the only club in England I'd sell him to, honestly, is Newcastle, because they would pay a pretty penny for a guy like him at his peak.
But would he go?
I don't think he would. I don't think he would.
Andy, the player, the person,
I don't think he would.
No, like his bio is born in Scotland, but found in Liverpool, isn't
Something
it?
like
So
that,
yeah. So
I don't think he would. It's Not an easy choice and a lot of things to consider. The last transfer we can discuss on today's stream, been a great one so far. If you've not already liked this stream, subscribe to the page. Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, rumored Liverpool are looking for him. Not like, he's rumored to leave Lazio every summer. United are always in for him, it appears. This is a much more reasonable price than years past. Reports from La Gazzetta del Sport is that 30 to 35 million pounds is the fee. He's a tall dude, strong physical presence in the midfield. Older, though. I'll get his exact age. I think it's like late 20s.
28, isn't he? 29?
Yeah, 26, actually. 26.
26? Surprise.
Yeah, born in 97. So younger than I thought. Wait, that's not him.
No, he's 28.
Yeah,
He's 28.
See, explain to me, Google. Explain to me, Google. When I Google Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, it gives me Vanja Milinkovic-Savic, which is his brother, 2 years younger. No, this is actually criminal. This is the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I Googled Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, and it gives me his brother. This is awful. All right, if it's rectified if I Google the other one. Oh, he actually shows up. Google, you have answers. You have questions to be asked. I was going to say 26 sounds so young. 28, kind of in his prime, age-wise. It'd be a surprising one, unless, solidified source. Charlie, for you, I've always enjoyed his game. I think he's always an interesting presence in the midfield, a much more towering attacking one. For you, Charlie, what are you looking at for that?
I was going to be really, really kind of downbeat about the player, but I've just had to look on transfer market, and he's always available. If you have a look at his league appearances, 36, 37, 32, 37, 31, 35, 34. I think that's a good attribute. We haven't had that in midfield since Genie was in the team. Genie by default was always available, and maybe at that point, and I'm possibly guilty of it myself, was we didn't appreciate that dependability in a player. Where it comes to him, the only thing is he is 28. Why are we buying players at that age, that profile, with a big salary to come in? And again, the homegrown situation is going to be kind of key and paramount to what we're talking about. My preference would always be the young lads coming in that we've already spoken about in today's show, Kone and Thuram. They're going to be the future for the club. This guy, as good as he is, as available he is, dependable. Not for me, not for the price.
I agree. I think just in terms of those factors. Kev, for you?
Sadly, his age just kind of doesn't fit the bill. It goes down the Mourinho room of getting Fellaini or a Matic of that age and going down that ilk of kind of player. I think we're better than that. I think don't get me wrong, I think he's played very well for Lazio. I know, Jack, have wanted him for numerous of years to play for Liverpool. It would be great, but I don't see the benefit of bringing him for 30 million when you've got a young player like Gabri Veiga who could come in. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
It's the age and the fact that what he could bring. You're only going to get someone near the end of his powers when you're getting someone who's potentially at the start of theirs. So for me, it would be a no for that point. Sorry,
it's just his age. His stats are brilliant. Looking at his goals that he's scored, 9 this season in Serie A, 11 the previous year, 8, 7. So he does get goals, and he's able to assist. It's just his age profile, unfortunately.
He's gotten double-digit goals and assist contributions of the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the last 7 seasons, he's gotten 10 plus in 6 of them. As a midfielder, he just kind of receives the ball differently than other midfielders. I don't think he could really fit that right center mid spot because I don't think him overlapping is what you want. He's better in central areas. He's a really nice presence in that sense, but he would almost be he would be a different guy. I think at 30 million pounds at a decent wage, if we can bring him in, I think he would be an alternative to Thuram. I think where if he goes elsewhere, and that big physical presence, because he wins a lot of aerial duels.
Yeah,
Savage does. So he would bring that physical element to the midfield.
I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't already on that list, but a bit further down on the list.
Yeah. I think he is going to have a few players not come this way. And he'd have to be, well, would have to go right for that to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Haley, as always, making a good point here. I think he would be worth around 30, around half that valuation because of the 1 year left on his contract. They're playing Champions League. He's been there for, I want to say, 8 years now at Lazio. So it's not like he's dying to get out of there. Maybe he wants to try something new. I think he would be a very interesting signing, but I just think, again, Kev, you make a good point. The players we're looking at, Mac Allister's the oldest one at 24. Everyone else is pretty much younger than that. And so bringing in Milinkovic-Savic would be an interesting age profile. He's not different than a lot of guys in the team, similar age to Alisson, Salah, a bit younger than Salah and Van Dijk. So he'd be kind of in his prime at the same time as them. So I honestly think that would be an interesting one. But again, just would take too much to happen.
If Lazio suggested, I'm just going to throw this out because it's just going to spitball, and we'll try to close up. But if Lazio said, we'll take Thiago off your hands, and if you give us a little bit of more money, you can have this player.
I'd almost want to go straight swap, to be honest. I don't think anyone would want that. I think it'd be tough for me to stomach moving Thiago on for Milinkovic-Savic when Thiago is a better fit for the squad right now. I think is my thought process there. And would Milinkovic-Savic move the needle enough in the matches he would play more frequently, as you mentioned, his availability, compared to Thiago when he can play, which is, you can pen him in for half the season and feel like you're okay with that amount of games that he could potentially feature in. In those games, though, he really does move it quite a bit in that left center mid, tempo controlling spot. I think it would have to almost be the inverse, Charlie, which doesn't make any sense. They'd have to pay us a little bit of money and give us Milinkovic-Savic for Thiago. I don't think anybody would want to do that, though.
And I don't think Thiago fits Lazio's profile either. No. They don't play with that kind of free flowing style. It's more of it is a very much a Milinkovic-Savic dominating midfield, and that kind of matches kind of players in the middle of their park. Very rarely will they have a creative player in that position. And if they're losing Savic, they'll want something of a similar ilk to come in for them. So, yeah.
I think they were almost looking at Thuram, just a little bit. Like they were looking at him maybe as the Milinkovic-Savic replacement, younger, same physical kind of profile, but different player, obviously. So, look, this is silly season. There's a lot of fun to be had with, what could be happening next year. I'll always remember when we were linked heavily to Gonzalo Higuain, either right after the Suarez sale, or maybe the year after, we were looking for Benteke. And that was when he was kind of, not quite peak of his powers, but that would have been a very interesting sign. And I was like, ooh, what would he look like in this 11? And it also shows how different we play now. The idea of a proper number 9, like Higuain, who is kind of rigid in that spot, rather than Nunez, who maybe can play as left winger. It's so foreign in this modern day of football. So
here's one for you, Jack. Here's one for you, Jack. 2009, Benzema for 32 million.
That would have been a solid signing. He would have been leaving us now, though. He would have been leaving to Saudi Arabia right now, so it would have been a bad deal. They had him for forever at Madrid.
Yeah, quality player.
Kev, last thoughts before we get out of the stream here today.
I'll be honest, from at the start of May, being very down and all wondering what's going on, I'm in a very good place at the alternatives and the prices that we're doing and how quickly and efficiently we're trying to get that players in. And I'll go back to what I said at the start, the versatility that we're bringing in, the players that can play a number of positions, which is something that we've missed in a way. I'm very, very keen on, I'm very looking forward to who's coming in after Mac Allister, and everyone we have been linked with can provide us something different. Everyone can provide us that little bit different, and it's great, and it's going to be intriguing to see what happens. I'm always up for the transfer window. I'm always up to get my heart broken about 50, 60, 70 times shooting the window. So this won't be the last time. I say every year I won't, but I get addicted to it, and I love the players that we're getting linked to. It shows that it's not all about Bellingham, and the fan base have moved on because there are better alternatives out there. And with the player who's got a knee injury as well, it kind of means have we missed one again? But no, I'm happy at the minute. The sun's been shining. It's going to be shining for another week. Football wise, it'll be shining when the window opens as well. So no, I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Charlie, last thoughts on the stream.
I can't top that. I can't top that. I feel exactly the same. So yeah, how low I was and how low the fan base was after Joyce kind of announced that we're not going to be pulled out the deal for Bellingham. Where we are now on the cusp of some really good deals. One this week, hopefully another kind of one or two by the middle of next week, end of next week. That'd be really, really good. That'd be champagne football kind of times then. Let's see how it goes. The next couple of weeks are going to be really, really interesting, and I think really good for the channel. I think whoever's watching, stick with us. You're going to get some really, really good shows out of us.
Yes, sir. Make sure you subscribe to the page if you're not already. Follow us on other social platforms for the latest updates, deep analysis, discussions, Kev's rants, which is the best factor to be tuning in for.
No, you don't need.
But for Kev and Charlie, I've been Jack. This has been a stream from the LFC Transfer Room. Take care. We'll see you next time.